Good evening, guys, and welcome back. In our previous class, we were able to set up our Django project framework, and then we were able to at least run the project. And then in our last class, we wrote the models for accounts and the forms code. I told you guys today we'll be starting with defining the functions we need for our authentication system. Please, if you have any question from the last class, you can ask your question now before we continue with what you have today. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Please, sorry, sorry, I have to draw you guys back. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I have to draw you guys back because the last class I was having serious network issue, and I tried to check the site to know if they have sent any video, but I've not seen any. So I had the issue on that this day. I couldn't follow up. I left the class around that time, so I couldn't follow to the end because of network issue and all that. Please, I don't know if there is any video or something, or maybe a highlight of what we did the last time. I will appreciate. Thank you.
Okay, I believe the last class was uploaded on the platform, but I will confirm in case it's not there. But check after this class. I will make sure it's to display there. I'll make sure it's there by the end of this class. Do you understand?
Okay, thank you.
Any other person with any problem or favor?
All right, sir. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, please. Also, I also apologize for dragging everybody back because my own issue is actually very, very critical. I don't know if you're able to see the reviews I did based on the question they asked in those forms. I have issue. My network has been bad, so I tried to go back to the videos. The first class video was okay. I followed through and I was able to get everything. But the second class video, the recording, it seems I didn't start on time. So I was lost. And I'm trying to look at other videos to check if I can meet up. But what I'm seeing on my screen and what I'm seeing on the class is kind of different. So that is where my issue is. Like, especially that place of printing. I'm not seeing where he's printing anything. It's just blank. It's not coming out. I don't know how. I'm sorry for
Okay,
dragging everybody, but that is where I'm lost.
okay, favor. At the end of the class, remind me about this your question again. You are going to tell me where exactly you are having issue, the topic, and then we'll tackle it together. Do you understand?
All right, so no problem.
Good. So, any question from our previous class? Is there anything you don't understand from our last class? You can ask your question before we start today. Okay. Where there is no question, let's continue from our views. Let's go ahead and start writing our views. In the views is where we basically write all the authentication we need to write. So all the functions like the login function, the registration function, like that is the main API housing. It's in the views.py that we mostly write those codes. But then let's proceed. You understand as we go on with the class. So in your accounts folder, even if you are making use of Replit, that is for those on mobile phone, we were able to create this folder in our last class, this account folder. So when you click on your account folder, it will display this drop down of items, this init.py, admin.py. This init.py is a file that, like, tell Python, this is a Python folder. Like, if you remove this init.py here now, Python might have issue running any other file within this folder. And basically this init.py is empty. There is nothing in it, but you just have to be within this folder to tell Python that this folder is a Python folder, that there are some Python files that will require attention within this folder. That is basically the work of this init.py. But that's not what we are going to be working with today. Where we'll be doing most of our work today is in this file views.py. So when you click on this views.py, you from django.shortcut import render. This render is a function for rendering your template, that is for fetching and displaying your templates. Like we discussed, like in our last class, when we ran our hello world HTML code, it was this render that was used it was this render function that made the displaying of those templates of our templates of this home.html within this template to be properly displayed as it should. That's the work of this render here. So proceeding, we need to import redirect. The basic work of this redirect is maybe after a particular after a particular action, you now want to redirect to another page. You now just tell the code. Once you finish that function, maybe after saving a model, you use this redirect to change, and that is to redirect your your URL to another file, to another function. For example, let me say I have a function for what should I use now? Okay, let me use the function login. Let me just use a simple login function. So I have this function login request. That will be the name of this function. So if we are now doing if request.method equals to post, that is if the form submitted is a post form. There are two types of forms: get and get is mostly to fetch a particular, like to fetch the items of a particular form and display it. But form and what with post, we are trying to save something to our models. In our case, we are trying to process. Post is basically used for processing imputed items. That is the details users submit. We use post to process them. So we are saying if request method is post, let's write a simple function. If request is post, then if form, it will now be equals to. In our last class, we created this forms.py file, and within this forms.py we have this custom authentication form. We are going to be needing this particular class in these views now to authenticate our login. That is to say, let's import that class from .forms. I explained how to make use of these .forms. We are using .forms because these views and the forms are within the same folder. So instead of saying from accounts, instead of saying from accounts.form import, we just say from .forms. This from .forms is the same thing as from account.form because these views and these forms are within the same folder. So we are just saying look within your folder and locate the forms file. So when you locate the forms file, import from the forms file, import. This is what we want to import here. this user authentication form. Let me just copy it from here. Import user authentication form. So this is where we are going to be making use of that authentication form. So, sorry, give me a minute. So that is to say, custom authentication form. Then you open and close your parentheses. This is, you are just telling Python here the forms we need here is just the forms in this custom authentication form. In our case, we are just passing Django authentication form, which is just username and password. But maybe you want to you have files, like you want to use different forms instead of username and password. You want to use email within this class. You can go ahead and define your fields, which will now be in brackets username and password, or email and password. But then we don't want to do that. We just want to use default authentication forms. So by using default authentication forms, just basically process just username and the password, which is the field on the listing by default. So let's proceed. After calling your custom authentication form, the next thing now is we are going to write code to check if this particular form is valid. Okay. So here we say request. We are going to call request function here. Request. Comma. So we are telling Python that the request method here is post, which is this request method. And the data we are requesting is a post data. Just process. We need these data to be processed. So the next thing now is to check if this form is valid. That is this form here. We say if this is where if else statement comes in. If form dot is valid. So we are telling Python if this form, this user just if this user correctly fills out this form, this is what we are going to do. That is, if the form user provided is correct, go ahead and perform this function. User will now be equals form dot get user. So we are basically telling Python that if this form is valid, set the user field. That is, set the user to the owner of this login detail. That is to the account where this username and password belongs. If the form is valid, set the user to the owner of that account. That is form.getUser. Then onto the next, we now call our login. Before we call login, let's go ahead and import the login. So to import login, we say from Django dot contrib dot auth. Sorry, this is mistake. Okay. From Django.contrib.auth, import login. That is, we are importing the login function from Django now. So what do we want to do with this function? After setting the user to the owner of this form details, the next thing we want you to do is log in the user. So that we now say login, which is this function we just imported now, login in parentheses request login request, okay, sorry, C, comma, user. That is to say, if these details is correct, log in this user. So then we want one more thing. After logging a user in, display a message for them. We have to show them a message that tells them that their login, their verification was successful or something like that. So to do that, we have to import one more thing from Django contrib, and that is going to be messages. So we say from Django dot contrib import messages. So now to use these messages, we are now going to tell the user that their login was a success. So we say messages dot success. Okay. So this is the message we are going to be printing out for user. If user account was logged in successfully, go ahead and show them this message. Account was successfully logged in. They have other types of messages, like this message will appear as green, but that is the default color. But then they have other kinds of messages, like messages dot warning. That is when you want to display an info for a user. Or then messages dot error, which is mostly maybe, okay, that's what we use in the else statement. That is in a situation where the user is in a situation where the user login details are wrong. But before we get to that, let's continue with. So after this thing, after displaying this message, we now make use of this redirect now, like I was telling you guys. Once this function have been executed, then redirect us back to our home page. That is, take us to the home page, or it can be a dashboard or any page that you want. Once user logs in, they can access that page. In our case, we are going to use our home page. So to do this, we now say return redirect. Let's check the name of our listing of our home URL. I'm not sure, but I think it's home. Okay, we use home. So we say return redirect home. That is this home here. Home. That is what we are going to do. So then let's proceed to a situation. Let's proceed to a situation whereby user details is incorrect. That is, the form they submitted is invalid. Let's go ahead and display an error message for them. That all we have to do now is say else, then you click enter. Messages dot error, invalid username or password. That is to say, if this form is invalid, display this message, an error message, invalid username or password. You can add more details like these fields are case sensitive. These fields are case sensitive. That is to tell you that if maybe while creating your account, your password is a capital letter, and now you are spelling it with a small letter, just know that this password field is case sensitive. You have to use not just the password field, the username field. You have to use the correct spelling the same way you use this while creating your account. So the next is we define an statement here, the if statement, to add an else this statement. That is what happens if the request method is not pulled. That is, if the request submitted, if the form submitted is not pulled, what are we going to do? So to do that, all you have to do is come here, click enter, shift and tab. Okay, you click shift tab to be here. Then you go ahead and say else. That is situation where the form submitted is not a tab. Form equals to authentication sorry, equals to custom authentication form. That is, we are calling on our form fields here. Then we now go ahead and say return render. That is, we are telling user that if the request is post, do this, perform this action. But then in situation where you don't recognize the request, maybe an empty request, or just like you don't recognize the content of this request, all you are going to do is return. Let's just render our HTML page. Just call our form and then render our template. In our case, the name you call request like this, request, comma, then your template name, which in our case we are going to put it in accounts, sorry, accounts slash, that is the directory to the to our login dot, sorry, login dot html. So within this, we are going to call our form context. One way of doing that is by um, opening a parenthesis. Sorry, not a parenthesis. I think a coily braces. I think that's the name of this braces there, or this kind. And then call our forms. Then go ahead and call this our form into the file. But then another method is by defining context. When by defining context, what you now do is context form. Let me do it like this. Context form by form is to form. Sorry, my system is starting to. My system wants to start misbehaving. So when you are using this type of context, what you are now going to do is you remove this coily braces here and just replace it with context. It's the same thing, but then why this one is better is you can add multiple. Let me say you have another function here, which is name. Let's say you have another value, you define something here, name equals to, let's use a string. Then you want to include sorry, you want to include this particular name to the context that will be fetched for the HTML page. All you have to do is at the end of this place, add a comma, come here, v, then sorry, put your listen, colon, then name. That is, we are now telling Python that anywhere you see name, just assign this variable to it, like we are doing with form. Anywhere you see form within our HTML page, just make a reference to this authentication form. So I think that should be all of our login page. So let's remove this name field and just use context in this instance is now, and use context like this. So the next thing we have to do is to create our account folder, that is our template login.html. Please, so far, is there any confusion before we can proceed? Any confusion, or is there anything you don't understand in anything I've been saying so far?
I still don't understand though, but let's be going because I didn't start from the beginning. But I'll still check the video, sure. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Any other question? Okay. From the second S, okay. So this else now is what we are trying to tell Python to do when the request method is not post. That is, in any type of request now, as far as it's not post, maybe user is just opening the page, it's a form of request, but it's a get request. And then any other type of request that is not post, we are going to carry out this other function. That is this else statement now. And what is this else telling Python? We are telling Python, go ahead and fetch our custom authentication form. That is the form we created in our last class in forms.py. Go ahead and fetch the custom authentication form, the contents, which is username and password. When you must have fetched it, we now pass this form into a context, into a context dictionary. Sorry, this is not into a context this thing. That is, before we used it in this manner. Instead of using this context, we did something like this. We used curly bracelets directly within our project where we did form. So what we are basically trying to do is we are trying to fetch, we are now trying to fetch our form and display it into our rendered HTML. That is, we are telling Python, if the request is not a post method, go ahead and render our HTML file. That is our account/login.html. This account/login.html, Django will go ahead and look for it in this pattern. The first pattern is going to look is for templates slash account/login.html. Why is going to look for this rendered page first in templates is because of what we did in our last class, which I'm going to show you guys. Now let me remove this template first. It's because of these settings, this particular code in our settings. In our template settings, we added this line of code. We are telling Python that our primary directory for templates is going to be in our base directory, which is in our base directory, which is on the project itself. All these things here are in the base directory: templates, Django, project, accounts. telling Python, begin the base directory, look for this folder, look for this template folder. So now within our views, once we are telling Python to render a template, which is if the method is not post, just render this template. But while rendering it, go ahead and fetch the contents of our custom authentication form, which is login and username and password. So let's go back to using this context method because it's easier to do and it's less stressful. So to use this context, all you have to do is just type context. Sorry. After your template name, the next thing you have to do is type out context. So once we are done with that, we now proceed to create our templates. That is, we now go ahead and create this folder. We now within our template folder, create another folder. That is directory. So create another folder, right click on the template, select new, that is for those making use of PyCharm. Then click on directory and put the name, in our case, account. If you are making use of Replit, when you click on your template and it displays that drop down there, then you go ahead and click that new folder button at the bottom of at the footer of your screen. When you click that new folder, you can type in the name of your folder, which you can also name it accounts if you want. Then within accounts, we will now go ahead and create our file, login.html file. New file. Sorry, it's a HTML file. We go ahead and create our file. We name it login.html. So with that being done, let me do something. Let me remove this this field like case sensitive. So with these settings now, when we let's then go ahead and create the URL for our of our login request. So to create a URL, right click on this your account. Sorry, the person that said I should recap from the second S statement. Do you understand what the explanation I just gave now? Okay, good. Is there any other question before we proceed into the URLs? Because right now we are done with the login request URL. Function. Any question? Okay, good. On to the next, which is a new Python file within our account, and then name it urls.py. So within our URLs, we have to import paths. To import paths, you say from Django dot URL, from Django.urls, import path, that is PATH. We are importing this particular function from default Django URL settings. So when we've done that, we now go ahead and import our views. We now say there are two methods you can use in this particular stage. The first one is from dot, that is from this folder. Now we are telling Python from my current folder, import views. That is, we are importing our views, the entire views file here. Then the next method is importing the exact function you need from your views. To do that, you say from dot views import, in our case, let's say login dot request. But then another method is you don't want to import the whole file, but you want to import the entire function within the views file. That is all the functions in the views. You want to import them. Instead of saying from dot views import, instead of using the name, okay, let me say I have another function and I want to also import it. All I have to do is put comma here and then import the next function that I want to import. But now in a case where I want to import all the functions in my views, all I have to do is from dot views import asterisk. This, we are basically telling Python, go ahead and import every single function within our views. So the next thing is defining our URL patterns, which in our case, URL patterns. Then we open and close these brackets. You open and close the brackets and click enter. What you need is path. You now call on path, which is this path you imported earlier. Then when you call path, open and close brackets. Then open and close quotation, login, add a forward slash. Then next is comma. Let's say this is where this two views method comes in. Let's say you are making use of this first one, this from dot import views, that is importing the entire views file. What you are now going to do in this stage is views, you now say views dot login request, login underscore request. That's what you now do here. Then go ahead and define name equals login, which is the name of this part, the name of this link now. So this is if you are trying to make use of this first function importing method. But then the second method is maybe you are using this method where you are importing all the functions, or you are using the specific function request. If you are using any of these two, all you have to do now in this case is go ahead and instead of typing views.login request, you just call the name of the function you need here, login underscore, remove this bracket. So that's all you have to do here. That is if you are making use of or specific name, you just do this and proceed or with the next thing you want to do. So that is it for defining our project URL. So then let's add a small button to our home, and then okay, we have these things we defined in our last class. So to add a simple button here, all we are going to use just a tag to avoid much stress. We say a login. So we add the next thing to do is to put the path to our login, and then in our case here is just say href. So call Django URL path. What you do is open and close curly brackets. I did curly bracelets. I don't forget. I've forgotten. Then this percentage mark. Then go ahead and say URL space open and close single quotation, and then within it write the name of your part, the part you are trying to call. In our case, we are trying to call login. What we are using here is the name of our this. Let me show. Is this name here? That's what we are making use of. This particular name here. So we are now telling Python, once user clicks on this particular link here, on this login, once user clicks login, take them to our HTML authentication page. Yes, let me remove this from the header. Yes. Let me remove this from the head. Just put it within the body. Yes, it will be better, yeah. So on to the next. The next thing now is to link our account URL to our base URL code. And to do that, to link our account URL and our base URL code, you go to this your default root folder. In my case, Django project. Click on it. Click on this URL here. On this. Okay, first let's check if we have if account is in our is okay. So first of all, you have to make sure account in your installed apps. That is, you have called this account app into your installed apps. Then you open this urls.py that is within your setting, that is on the same folder with your settings. So when you open this urls.py, you come to this place. We have already imported include. This is where we are going to make use of this include we imported earlier. So what we do is say path in bracket, sorry, accounts. Account. If we say account like this now, sorry, let me explain something before we proceed. Let's say we just use account like this. And then what it's going to do is when we click on our login, what it will do is it will display the login URL as maybe your domain name.com, domain.com slash account login, which is not what we want to do. We want to like make sure we are seeing the part that we are in. So what we are going to do to make sure everything is working properly is just add slash to this forward slash to this account. So with this now, what we've just done is domain.com slash accounts, sorry, accounts with S slash login. Instead of account login, it will now be slash account slash login. So let me remove this and proceed. You go ahead and enter your comma and proceed. Now you make use of this include we imported earlier. So you do that, you say include, sorry, include, open and close brackets, accounts dot URLs. So what we basically did here, we are telling so we are now telling Python that once the redirection, okay, once user clicks a link, when you are looking for the link, also look for the link within the account folder and within the account app, and within the account where you look for the link is in accounts.urls. So when user clicks a link, it will first scan all the all the root URLs to check if that link or if that part is on the platform. If it's not there, to display an error like in this thing. Then, if it's not there, the next thing it will do is to search within the URLs included URL files were called in the root URL. For example, in account.url, we remove this file and user clicks on login. Let me comment this file out. Sorry, let me comment this part out and then run my project. I want to show you guys something. So let me share my screen. So look at this page I'm sharing now. This is our home page, but it's not telling us reverse for login not found. This is basically because it's looked in our base project and this login could not be found there, and there is no external app that is pointing to this URL that is also saved within our URL scope. So it's trying to tell us that this link we are calling here is not a link. It's not a link I know about. So to make sure that this link is being displayed, what we are now going to do is set up that our account URLs. So let's set it up properly and run it again. So let me uncomment this line. And then let's go ahead and run and refresh that page. So let's refresh this page now and see what happens. So welcome, that's the first line there. And then this is that button we created. This is we've not styled it, so it's just a for now it's just a regular button, just a regular text link. So when we click on this link now, it's now directing us to our login page with nothing on it. So I don't know whether my battery is going to last for long again because I'm currently not, I don't have light at the moment. So let me know what you can achieve before my system choose to misbehave. Hopefully. So let's proceed to the account HTML page. Let's add some forms there. That is this login.html. Let's add something there first. Let's change this title. So the first thing we have to do in our login page is let's just create some. Okay, we already have this set up. So let's just go ahead and do div. This is a div. This is okay. Then when you create this tag, then our h, let's use h2 for the title of this page. That is to add title to the page. So that is, let's put this tag inside another div. Why I'm doing it like this is when we'll be styling the page, it will make it easier for us during styling to style it section by section, because we are not just going to end it at the empty form. We are going to style the page later, so at least the not just be an empty form. When I mean styling, like all those beautiful forms you usually see. So the next thing now, for our inputs, for the input, that is what where user is going to input their details. What you are going to do now is you say form. We open this form tag. Within this form, that's where all our inputs will be. So we have to define the method of this form submission. So it will not, like when we submit the code, we submit properly. We say method sorry, equals to post. Is when you define post, like this is how you define post. Then the next thing is the token for verification. So it will verify, like to make sure this form is being submitted properly. So you go ahead and define CRF token, just like this. You open the bracelet, put your 2% signs, and then the next thing you have to do is call CSRF token. So that is it for this, is which will make sure it gets that particular token, like that is a one-time token that will be sent as a signal to the back end for the submission of this form. That's what is going to tell Django that this is a legit submission, that is not a bot submitting the addition. So the next thing we have to do now is we have to input. Okay, before we get to the errors, let's go ahead and define our form, this thing, our input method. So we say this enter, then define label label in our case user name for the first label. So within this label, once we define this label, the next thing is to define the input of this label. So when we are using Django forms, instead of going ahead to use input like this, instead of going ahead to use input, what we are now going to do is just call our Django forms. We now say, sorry, we open 2 curly bracelets and close them, and then go ahead and say form dot username. What this is going to do is going to create that input that we do not have code. It will just fetch the username, like that is the username field. It's, let me refresh the page, our login page, so you will see this detail just to understand what I'm trying. So on this our empty page, let's go ahead and refresh it now. So you see this username now. I spelled login wrong here, but you see this username now. It's called the username form from that user creation form. It's from that user creation form. It's called it here. That is where we say form dot username. Then the next one is password. The next one is password. To call password, please, after this password definition, yes, okay, sorry, let me share this page. After this password definition, I think I'll have to end the class before my laptop runs down. Because if it runs down, I won't be able to save this class and post it on the chat later. So on Thursday, we'll go ahead and start styling it. But so I copied this field, this item now and pasted it to use it as the next field now is password, and then form dot password. So, so I added the password. Okay, I did not show you guys what I did. Let me show you guys what I did this last stage. So all I did for that password to display is I created this, I replicated this div now, but this time with password details, that is form.password, and then in the label I named it password. So that is it for. So in our next class we'll be styling this thing. No, before we start, oh, that's not all. Then there is one more final thing, the one final this thing addition, very important, which is button. This button now will be used for submission of this form. So button, then we have to put the type of button this is. The type of this button in our case is submit, a submit button. This is to say once user clicks on this particular button, go ahead and submit this form. The name of this button shall be log. We are going to use login for the name of this button. So let me go ahead and refresh the page. And so all these input listing must be inside this form tag for it to work. It's not a must you put it in this form tag while creating, but there is another way you can use JS while submitting the form. You now input it in a JS form and then submit, but that's not what we are talking about here. This is just best practice and it's the best thing to do for now. So let me spell this correctly. And now go ahead and refresh the page. So this is the skeleton of our project. I don't know. Okay. So in our next class, before we do anything, we'll first create an account, an admin account. I'll show you guys how to create a super user account. Then before we proceed to logging in and then adding other changes to our authentication system. Any question for this class? Because I have to end this recording. Any question? Okay. So for the class that you guys did not see on the page, just I'll try and check it this night and make sure by tomorrow morning it will be up, including this particular class. That is if NEPA decides to act as they should. I was counting on them and forgot to buy fuel. So that will be it for this class. You guys, good night and have a great night rest. We'll continue on Thursday. You can leave the class now.